So what we're talking about here is that in the tracing board there is a decoded message of not only of the origins of the human race, but also actually aligning itself with your theory about the fact that humanity came to this planet, right?
It seems like three different arrivals. The one, obviously, 200,000 years ago would have been, according to the pillar, being hardly carved. It's a very simple beginnings, and perhaps ancient astronauts finding our solar system and perhaps using it as a penal colony, testing it out with, jumping penal colony instigators into this planet, seeing how they cope. And over time, it looks like there was a second one that came, a whole 100,000 years after it. And that's the pillar to the right. And again, perhaps very simple sort of beginnings, maybe starting some of the foundations of Atlantis.
Mm-hmm.
We can only guess on that sort of basis.
Sure.
But the one on the middle is associated with all the other star maps. That's just one that happens about 17,000 years ago, where there seems to be a mass visitation. Call it the real colonization of this world by perhaps all different people from all over the cosmos.
And almost, I think you refer to it in your article as to almost the invasion of this planet, and hence the consequence of that was the annihilation of the Neanderthals? Or?
Neanderthal. It's quite an amazing thought. How many times have they written science fiction stories on one day this world will be invaded by aliens, and you can imagine these big UFOs coming in and wiping us out.
Yeah.
I think it's happened. I think it's something of the past. We're kind of arrogant, thinking we still knew and have all this greatness, and nothing's really happened before us. But it's quite likely that this is what happened 17,000 years ago. This world at that time had Neanderthal as the hominid, the Earth-evolved hominid ready to inherit the Earth.
Mm.
And our ancestors came along and said, this place is great, don't worry about the Neanderthal. They might not have just wiped him out. I think that's unethical and probably unnatural. I would say that more than likely the poor Neanderthal was moved out of his territories, and if anything, caught disease from us and maybe died out without us realizing that we destroyed them.
Fascinating. And I guess also that this, looking at the star map, the image you have on your website, that this is something even to do with the fact that this is something you can see if you're standing looking towards the east, where you could find the Pleiades on the right-hand side, and the blazing star towards the middle. Do we have to back up in time here, or how does that work?
Yeah, we should mention that the window you're looking at, the tracing board, has the coordinates on it. Now, in any star map, you need to know, which is the northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere, west, east. So you need those four cardinal points. You also need to see where you're viewing from. Your point of view is, in this case, standing where the W is in front of the block. So you're standing in a westerly direction, looking at the horizon in the east.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is very important in Egyptology. The ancient Egyptians revered the rising of stars on the horizon for some unknown reason. I think it's because they basically coming into view and they've arrived, kind of thing. I think this is the whole meaning behind the Sphinx, watching not the sun, but watching the stars coming up, and of course, important stars.
Mm-hmm. And so one interpretation here is that all of these stars that are depicted here in the star map are potentially then could have planets around them that are inhabited even to this day, I guess.
I'm pretty sure. I mean, you can't think of people coming from stars. They're coming from solar systems. It's quite likely. I mean, you ask any astronomer now, they're quite open about it, because if you asked 5 years ago, even 10 years ago, if they thought there was other planets and life out there, they'd probably say very unlikely. But you'll see the change in tone now. They're finding planets common with nearby stars, and the size of them basically suggests that there's a lot of material to make planets, and there's probably going to be a lot more solar systems out there like ours.
And we could tie in here also then, I guess, the fact that potentially Mars was the planet that from the start was inhabited. And I think you mentioned in your article also that the what do you call it, the advantages was better on Mars because here on Earth things doesn't seem to be quite right for humans.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, it's quite strange that we can look at it from that angle, because we consider, well, this is perfect. We only know the Earth, but if you look at the human makeup and the the skeletal structure and muscle connection. We're 1/3 retarded in both bone density and muscle connection. And that's really odd. Why would we be mutated? Why would we be a reject, so to speak, in this Eden? And every other animal in the animal kingdom is equipped for it. If you look at the bone density of Neanderthal and compare it to us, it's quite a joke. I mean, they're more like a gorilla, whereas we are very frail creatures in respect. And it seems quite likely if you take Mars, and NASA has announced that it's 100% fact, it was once like the Earth with oceans. I've got the article on my Mars page on the website that they say even Pacific Ocean-sized water masses on Mars. That's quite amazing. So if it had that, it would have had pretty much a natural ingredient for life as well. There would have been clouds, there would have been lightning, there would have been amino acids forming, very, very similar to ours. I'm pretty sure you'll see that sort of key code is common in the universe, where there's the effect of lightning fixing amino acids and the slow process of life building. I think if you look at the Mars gravity as well, it would have been a bit bigger than the planet appears now because it has a huge impact crater. I think it's 2,000 kilometers wide.
Wow.
Imagine what kind of meteor impact would make a hole that big in the planet and how much material was blown out into space.
Yeah.
It was a lot bigger before, better gravity, probably about half our gravity. Imagine the planet being at that distance from the sun. On the equator, estimates are that it would be around perfect optimal temperature for human beings, around about 25 degrees Celsius. And very gentle weather, because of the size of the planet, won't be as vigorous as our weather. Very gentle, very nice golden sunlight, not damaging people's eyes, no need for glasses. And of course, half the gravity means you kind of like a Superman. Imagine doing a triple somersault out of your bed in the morning. Like you see monkeys jumping from trees, and that we would be able to do the same as the apes, which is fair, isn't it? I mean, that seems to be the right place for us. And I would say that was the jewel of the solar system, and Earth would be a second plan, something that researchers can go to, or a place for convicts, maybe a penal colony civilization until Mars was overpopulated, and anybody can guess from there onwards.
That's so amazing. I mean, okay, so let's bounce around an idea here that Mars was inhabited at first, and the Earth was, as you say, used as a penal colony. Then something happened on Mars, meaning that there might potentially only be the bad guys left here on Earth.
Yeah, I think it's quite likely that because Mars was closer to the asteroid belt, whatever caused the asteroid belt, Mars was closest to it and took a large impact that destroyed it and murdered the planet. I would say high probability that because they were advanced people with technology to space travel, most of them would have evacuated. Probably a lot perished in the process because it couldn't have taken everybody. But at the same time, they probably came back many hundreds of years later, because you can imagine they would have gone deep space looking for another solar system, and in time, want to come back and do research back in this solar system, perhaps hundreds and hundreds, maybe even thousands of years later. And the Earth survivors, penal colony, descendants of descendants of descendants, lost the ability to read or write and to draw pictures in caves like we see in the Lascaux caves. I mean, there's a star map that's 17,000 years old, drawn by cavemen, that show the great detail of Taurus, the Pleiades, and the little X star that marks the spot. So, and I think when they came back again, what did we do? We revered them as gods.
Huh. That's amazing, and that's also, I guess, where the tie-in with the angels themselves, potentially, that what when we think back of our religions or mythology or whatever you want to call it, that the so-called angels actually potentially then might be highly advanced, technologically speaking at least, highly advanced beings, or humans I should say, but coming from another planet, right?
I 100% agree. In fact, a theologian that was a Jehovah's Witness, very open-minded Jehovah's Witness chap I met in Durban quite a few years back, even said to me, if you think of the simplicity of teachings in the ancient times, they would want people to listen and hear these great testimonies. If a testimony had too much complication and technicality in it, it actually makes people start doubting how, for example, a flying disc could fly, but it doesn't have bird's wings. So it's quite likely, theologians agree, quite generally now you'll see it in open research, angels having birds' wings, and these discs that you see in Egypt and in Sumeria having birds' wings, which is not the sun flying with birds' wings, because it's probably a disc because it was a flying disc that these angels arrived in, had to be taught as able to fly, and that's the only way to write it down and depict it. And I think it's carried through with traditions, very romanticized, and I think very effective in the old days. I'll tell you what, it's not working today.
That's a good point. And you know, let's talk a little bit about the about Hiram Abiff, because there's, you know, a lot of questions arise here when we think of where Masons first got this tracing board from. You know, do we have an idea about that?
It's a very rough idea, and I've took a great deal of care in researching it with the university people as well, and with a couple of Freemasons that even they said to me, you know, they're embarrassed to talk about it because they don't even have these texts that they can just go in and get all the detail. It's basically spoken about in their meetings, and you know, you're just not supposed to speak to the public about it, so go out there and go to the university and find out for yourself. Basically, what I found is it is, according to the University of Bradford, that this whole, in fact, they name the whole first-degree tracing board, second-degree, third-degree, under the, I think it's the Web of Hiram. Actually, you name it after Hiram. So that, to me, suggests that it's based around the legend of Hiram Abiff, and he had the secret that he was murdered for. He wouldn't tell his fellow stonemasons his grand secret that he thought was absolutely important, and he died for it. And it's quite likely that his other fellow workers, other masons, found this first-degree tracing board, or what we call the first-degree tracing board. Now, it's something that we see in this image that we've been talking about. And it was a very mysterious way of recording, marking timelines with pillars, with stars above in the sky, and telling a story without words. And I think it's been drawn and redrawn, and a lot of detail might have even been adjusted on this. But I tell you what, it's pretty accurate as it stands today, comparing it to my star map theory.
Fascinating. And
I think that's probably the source of it, Hiram Abiff. Nobody will really know, but it seems the university feels strongly about it as well, that it is that source.
So the question is if Hiram actually was he murdered because he didn't want to share his secrets?
Didn't want to share his secret.
Or was it that he actually had a secret that people around him didn't want to be exposed or carried on in tradition?
I think they threatened him with his life, and he took a blow to the head. He didn't reveal the secret, and it's quite likely that they went and looked in his dwellings, and lo and behold, there's this manuscript. I would imagine very Egyptian-looking manuscript, perhaps. I think it could even be slightly Hebrew. I mean, I never thought the Hebrew aspect out of it might even be important, but it's quite likely there's a link with the Hebrew historical Genesis as well, with the Solomon key showing almost a mirror story based on another whole depiction. Here we have pillars and stars. Now on the Solomon key, they're showed in a different way. Similar puzzle, but same meaning.
So okay, and just going back a little bit again to the star map here, is there anything suggesting in the star map now that a third visitation is possible, that the gods is coming back? Is there anything like that in there?
I don't think so. I think we can look at our human ethics and look at our history and see what's happened to all our religions, and we were visited by these grand teachers, these heavenly visitors. Initially treated them well, but it's quite likely that our emotion, there's something about human emotion seeing a UFO, and I can speak from my own experience, having seen something as a teenager. I tell you what, you become emotionally attached to this subject of UFOs. It's weird. There's something in us that wants to attach to this visitation of something extraterrestrial. And it's quite likely that the whole historical records show that we get so emotionally involved with these visitors. They might have taken some of our own offspring. They might have had hybrid, half human, half themselves, replenishing the gene pool in the cosmos and taking children away, their children, half their children, probably under great acceptance by great civilizations all across the globe. But when they didn't come back, it's quite likely that